Hi, so this is Cumberland University's Young Adult Fiction section. Up top, we keep a lot of our newer books and some of the more popular ones that we just want to try to draw people's attention to, just like usual that you would do with a display. As you can see, we actually have several of them that get checked out, which is good considering a lot of times college students don't really have the time for just fun reading. A lot of times they're only coming to the library to look for stuff to help with research papers or specific nonfiction books. So it is good that at least our young adult section is getting used. Unfortunately, Cumberland section for young adults is pretty small, despite the fact that we are catering directly to college students, which are teenagers most of the time. But we at least do what we can to try to provide some of them with the kind of things that they would be interested in. And lately we've been doing a pretty good job with getting newer books, just because since Cumberland is an older university, we had a lot of old books and we've been working on getting rid of those. But now we're finally getting a newer collection. It still is very limited though. But we try to get most of the popular titles, such as there you see The Selection and of course, Hunger Games series, very popular. And then we have Beastly, and then we have Carnival. I know that's one that a lot of people had read for this class earlier in the semester. And just so on. We do have a lot of series, which is good too, because I know a lot of young adult readers want to be able to finish a whole series. They don't want just one or two, which is good. But I'm still working on trying to get us to get more of other series that I know that are popular. Because then again, there's just so many that we just haven't covered yet. And as you can see, there's a lot of space on the shelves for more stuff that needs to be filled. And I definitely think even though this is a academic library, we do need a bigger selection of young adults just because that really is who we're catering for the most part. And I think encouraging them to read on their free time when they're not having to do stuff for classes is a great thing to try to do. And clearly, since we do have the space, I do think we should try to work on increasing our budget just to have it. But either way, I still think that for Cumberland being such a small school and our library being very limited, we actually have a pretty good selection of at least newer materials for young adults. But it's still, of course, as any library, it can always be improved. Also, it makes me happy to see that there are empty spaces on these shelves because that means people have been checking things out, which again is always a positive for our school. But here you see all the empty shelves, so much space that needs to be used, but we just don't have the materials yet for our collection. Moving on, this is actually technically our children's and juvenile section, but it also does contain a lot of materials I would consider closest thing that we have to a makerspace, and also some of the juvenile books that we have classified as juvenile I would actually say are more towards the young adult section, but they are where they are. So here we have a little coloring station for students to come and try to relax during the semester because of course with finals and everything it's stressful. We have games and then we have a puzzle that obviously students have been working on a little bit. They've finally got the borders done, but again this is just sort of to provide them with a little space to relax. Here is the juvenile books that we have. I'm not going to be showing the children's section, but this is just the juvenile. But again, there's actually a lot of books on here that I would personally consider to be young adult and not juvenile. But the way that our library system catalogs them, it still hasn't been changed over. Of course, not all of these, because again, some of these are geared toward younger readers. And of course, as we talked about in this class, there's a lot of debate over what classifies as young adult and what is juvenile, and if there even really should be the difference between the two. But it is what it is right now, and I have to accept it, even though sometimes whenever I see a book, I'm just like, oh, I don't want it to be in this section. I would say also in our juvenile section, we have a lot of older materials. Not all of these are quite as new as what we have in our young adult section, which does make it a difference because then people don't use this section quite as much. And again, we're not necessarily going to have actual kids coming into the library very often since this is a university, but it still at least gives an option for readers here. And also this is something that the education department encourages use of a lot because of course students that are going to be teaching primary school or elementary school, they need to know more about these books. Again, though, since these are classified as juvenile, it does, I think, discourage our students from using it as much because they probably think, oh, these books are for kids, so I can't really read them. But again, a lot of these are geared towards younger or older readers. And like here, for instance, we have our whole Harry Potter section, yet it's all the way over here where students aren't necessarily going to go look for them or know that we have them, and the series of unfortunate events and everything like that, where it's like older readers do enjoy these things, but they don't necessarily get classified as that, so then students don't realize that we have them. I think if we were to keep them over in the young adult section, they'd probably be used more, and again, students would know about them, because this is also sort of tucked away in the corner, whereas the young adult section is right in the center, where hopefully students notice it more, so they're not going to come back here and look as much. Here again, like the Book Thief, I would definitely say that's young adult, not necessarily for a younger reader. You have a lot of like 11th graders having to read that, yet it's here. In between, we have some of the computer terminals, and then over to the side of the juvenile section and over to the left of the young adult section, we have our March Madness display, which we did try to incorporate a lot of young adult books here because we know those are the type of things that are popular with our students. And then, of course, they get to vote, and the prize is a Starbucks gift card, I think, and a new book. Lastly, right beside our young adult section, we have a power charging bar, which students use a lot, of course, for their technology.